Some people walk into a room and immediately feel grounded. They don't rush to impress. They don't shrink to be accepted. They don't seem threatened by attention or silence. From the outside, it looks effortless, as if confidence is something they were simply born with. But psychology tells a much quieter, deeper story. People who appear always confident are rarely fearless. They are rarely perfect, and they are rarely unaware of their flaws. What separates them is not the absence of doubt, but the way they relate to doubt. Confidence at its core is not about believing you will succeed. It is about believing you can survive the outcome. A confident person does not say, "I will definitely win." More often, they say something internal and subtle. "Even if this goes wrong, I will handle it." That belief changes everything, because fear does not come from uncertainty alone. Fear comes from the belief that failure would destroy you. People who are always confident do not believe that. They believe they are resilient. This belief is not random, it is built. Confidence is a psychological structure, and like all structures, it is made of components. One of the most important components is internal stability. Many people grow up learning that their value is conditional. They are praised when they succeed, ignored when they struggle, corrected when they disappoint. Over time, they learn a dangerous equation: performance equals worth. When this equation becomes internalized, confidence becomes fragile. Every situation feels like a test. Every interaction feels like evaluation. People who are consistently confident tend to break this equation. They still care about growth. They still want to improve. But their sense of worth is not constantly on trial. They can fail without collapsing. This is not arrogance. This is emotional separation. They separate who they are from what they do, and that separation creates psychological safety. When your identity is safe, you can take risks without panic. Another key factor is how confident people interpret events. Two people can experience the same failure and walk away with opposite beliefs. One person thinks, "This proves I'm not good enough." Another thinks, "This shows me what to work on." The difference is not optimism, it is attribution. Confident people tend to interpret setbacks as specific, temporary, and adjustable. They do not treat mistakes as permanent evidence of inadequacy. This protects their self-concept. When your self-concept remains intact, confidence does not shatter under pressure. Another misunderstood trait of confident people is their relationship with judgment. Most people fear judgment because they associate it with rejection, and rejection feels like danger. Confident people often still dislike judgment, but they no longer see it as catastrophic. At some point in their lives, they learned that being judged is survivable. They were embarrassed and lived. They were criticized and adapted. They were misunderstood and remained whole. This rewires the nervous system. Social exposure stops triggering panic responses. The body no longer treats attention as threat. That is why confidence often looks calm. It is not performance, it is regulation. Another powerful trait is self-trust. Confident people trust themselves to respond, not perfectly, but competently enough. They do not need certainty before acting. They move with incomplete information. This is crucial because life rarely offers certainty. People who wait to feel ready often wait forever. Confident people act first, then adjust. Each adjustment becomes evidence. Each survival becomes proof. Over time, this proof accumulates. Confidence is built on memory. I've handled difficult situations before. I didn't break. I adapted. The brain learns through experience, not intention. This is why thinking about confidence does nothing. Doing hard things creates confidence. Another often overlooked element is boundaries. People who are always confident usually know where they end and others begin. They do not over-explain. They do not over-apologize. They do not negotiate their dignity. This does not mean they are cold, it means they are clear. Clarity creates confidence. When you know what you will tolerate and what you will not, your nervous system relaxes. Indecision drains confidence. Boundaries restore it. Now, an important distinction must be made. Not all visible confidence is healthy. Some confidence is armor. Some people project certainty because vulnerability feels unsafe. They dominate conversations. They reject feedback. They confuse control with strength. This is not stable confidence. It is defensive confidence. True confidence is flexible. It can admit ignorance. It can change its mind. It can listen without collapsing. The test is simple. What happens when they are wrong? A truly confident person adjusts. A fragile one becomes aggressive or dismissive. Real confidence does not fear correction, because correction does not threaten identity. Another psychological pattern in confident people is their internal dialogue. Their self-talk is not endlessly positive, it is functional. Instead of saying, "This is terrifying, I can't handle it," they say, "This is uncomfortable and I can manage it." Instead of catastrophizing, they contextualize. This keeps emotion within tolerable limits. Confidence is not emotional absence, it is emotional containment. Confident people feel fear. They simply do not let fear define them. They do not obey every emotion, they observe it. This is why many confident people appear present. They are not fighting themselves internally. Presence reads as confidence. Another trait is identity coherence. Confident people usually have a stable sense of who they are. They have values, principles, non-negotiables. They do not reinvent themselves in every room. This consistency builds self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation of confidence. When you respect yourself, you stop seeking permission to exist. Some people develop this early through support. Others build it later through self-repair. Both paths lead to the same place: internal loyalty. Confident people do not abandon themselves under stress. They correct themselves, but they do not destroy themselves. That rule alone separates confident minds from insecure ones. Confidence is not loud. It does not need constant proof. It is quiet trust. And that trust comes from knowing you will stay on your own side. Confidence becomes clearer when pressure appears. Anyone can look confident when things are easy. But the psychology of confidence reveals itself when control is lost, when plans fail, when expectations are challenged. This is where the difference becomes visible. People who are always confident do not rely on circumstances to feel stable. They rely on internal alignment. One of the strongest psychological differences is how they relate to identity. Many people treat identity as fragile, something that must be protected, defended, and constantly reinforced. They think, if I'm wrong, I'll look stupid. If I fail, I'll lose respect. If I'm exposed, I'll lose value. This turns life into image management. Confident people operate differently. They do not treat identity as something to defend at all costs. They treat it as something flexible, evolving, and resilient. They are not attached to being right. They are attached to being real. This is why confident people can admit mistakes quickly. Not because they enjoy it, but because it doesn't threaten their sense of self. They don't confuse being wrong with being worthless. This distinction frees enormous mental energy. Another layer is attachment style. Psychologically, many confident people have a more secure attachment pattern. This means they are less afraid of abandonment, rejection, or disapproval. They don't need constant reassurance to stay regulated. They can tolerate emotional distance without panicking. They can be alone without feeling erased. This does not mean they don't value connection. It means connection is not their only source of stability. People with insecure attachment often seek confidence through others, through approval, through validation, through attention. This makes confidence reactive. When approval is present, confidence rises. When it disappears, confidence collapses. Confident people tend to reverse this structure. They generate stability internally and allow relationships to add to it, not replace it. This makes them calmer in social dynamics. They don't chase, they don't overperform, they don't disappear to be liked, they remain themselves. This consistency is often mistaken for dominance, but psychologically it's regulation. Another misunderstood element is body language. People assume confident individuals consciously control their posture, gestures, and eye contact. In reality, most confident body language is a byproduct, not a strategy. When a person feels internally safe, the body relaxes. Shoulders drop, breathing slows. Movements become economical. Eye contact becomes natural instead of forced. Insecure people often overcorrect their body language. They try to appear confident. They sit too straight, they stare too hard, they exaggerate gestures. This creates tension. True confidence has less effort, because the body mirrors the mind. Another critical factor is emotional ownership. Confident people take responsibility for their emotions without blaming others for them. They don't say, "You made me feel this way." They say, "This is how I'm reacting and I'll deal with it." This creates psychological power. When you own your emotional responses, you stop giving others control over your internal state. This doesn't mean confident people suppress emotions. It means they process them without outsourcing responsibility. This makes them less reactive, less defensive, more grounded. Another important trait is tolerance for silence. Many people rush to fill silence because silence feels like judgment. They talk to avoid awkwardness. They explain to avoid misunderstanding. They justify to avoid rejection. Confident people are comfortable with pauses. They don't rush to prove relevance. They allow space. This communicates inner stability. Silence becomes a signal of presence, not absence. Another difference is how confident people approach comparison. Most insecurity is fueled by constant comparison. Am I better, worse, behind, ahead? Confident people compare less frequently, not because they think they're superior, but because their reference point is internal. They measure progress against their own values, not against someone else's highlight reel. This reduces chronic self-doubt. When comparison decreases, confidence stabilizes. Now let's talk about a crucial distinction: confidence versus narcissism. They are often confused. Narcissistic confidence requires admiration. It needs an audience. It feeds on superiority. Psychological confidence does not. Confident people don't need to be the most impressive person in the room. They don't collapse if someone else shines. They don't feel diminished by others' success. Their confidence is non-competitive. Narcissism collapses under criticism. Confidence absorbs it. Narcissism protects an image. Confidence protects a process. This is why confident people keep growing. They are not protecting a persona. They are protecting their capacity to evolve. Another subtle trait is decisiveness. Confident people make decisions faster, not because they know everything, but because they accept uncertainty. They understand that indecision is often more damaging than imperfection. They choose, they move, they adjust. This creates momentum. Momentum reinforces confidence. Confidence is strengthened through movement, not waiting. Another psychological habit is self-loyalty. Confident people do not betray themselves under pressure. They don't agree to things that violate their values just to be accepted. They don't abandon boundaries to avoid discomfort. This builds inner trust. When you repeatedly choose yourself, your brain learns that you are safe with you. That safety becomes confidence. Many people underestimate how much confidence comes from this one rule. I will not abandon myself. That rule changes behavior. It changes how you speak, how you walk, how you decide, how you recover. Another important dimension is how confident people relate to fear. They do not treat fear as a command. They treat it as information. Fear becomes a signal, not a stop sign. They ask, what is this fear trying to protect? Is this danger real or imagined? What happens if I move anyway? This reflective relationship with fear prevents paralysis. Fear loses authority. Confidence grows. Another overlooked factor is routine exposure to discomfort. Confident people often place themselves in situations that stretch them slightly, not dramatically, not recklessly, but consistently. They speak up even when unsure. They try even when imperfect. They risk small embarrassment regularly. This trains the nervous system. Discomfort becomes familiar. Familiarity reduces fear. Fear reduction builds confidence. This is why confidence is rarely built in comfort zones. Comfort preserves the current self. Challenge expands it. Now, a final important point. People who are always confident are not always motivated. They are not always inspired. They are not always energetic. But they are consistent. They don't wait for confidence to act. They act, and confidence follows. They don't rely on mood. They rely on commitment. This is why their confidence appears stable. It's not emotional. It's structural. Built through habits, maintained through self-respect, reinforced through experience. So when you see someone who seems confident all the time, what you're really seeing is someone who trusts themselves to remain intact even when things go wrong. That trust is quiet, but it is powerful, and it is learnable.